Welcome to the Magic on the Inside podcast by the Sisters Enchanted, where we chat magic, hot topics, personal development, and good old-fashioned life. Brew up something delicious and sit with us for a spell.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Astro forecast of the Magic on the Inside podcast with the Sisters Enchanted. I'm Anna, co-founder at the Sisters Enchanted, and I'm joined by Sarah Milne, one of our team members and exhibition astrology teachers. Hi, Sarah.
Hi everyone.
Hi. We are now doing our Astro forecast for the week of July 26th. So July 26th through that week.
Yeah, last week in July, beginning of August.
Yes. So it looks like we have a theme for the week, and that's changing energies.
That's
Sarah,
right.
Tell us what that's about.
That's because we have a lot of planets moving signs this week. So we have 3 planets moving signs this week. So this can bring, when planet changes signs, it can take a little bit of time for the planet to settle in. It's like just coming in. It's like novice in that sign, and it takes a little bit of time, and we can kind of feel that kind of like that flux. So when we've got 3 planets moving, obviously we might feel this week is a bit unsettling, but don't worry, because there's nothing, like often when my friends will say to me, I've been feeling really unsettled this week, Sarah, what's going on in the sky? It's like nothing really to worry about, just the fact that these planets are just moving. So it's just taking a little bit of time for us to readjust into that energy.
Can I just say, sorry, I'm interrupting, but can I just say, as an astrologer and somebody that practices astrology, and I loosely follow moon phases. I'm more aware when it's a new moon and a full moon.
Yeah.
But how many times somebody in my life has said, what is going on in the sky right now? And they're looking for some sort of like astronomic like change. And I'm like, I don't know, nothing. Like, nothing is happening. And they're like, Mercury must be in retrograde and there's a full moon. And I'm like, no, neither. But how many times in my life that has happened to me? And I'm like, nada. Like,
I had that. It's really cool. My daughter, she's 25 and she's very not into this stuff at all. Well, she wasn't. But I did one of her friends' charts and solar returns, and she loved it. And then she's following my daughter. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the other day I had this phone call from her. I could tell she was a little bit tipsy. She was doing that thing of trying to speak very carefully, so not to slur. And I'm like, what's going on? And then all her friends were there, and there was all this chat. They were just like, everyone's got questions. Can you please tell us all about our Saturn returns? Because we're all just want to know what's going on in our lives right now, because they're in that kind of like mid-20s heading into that Saturn return energy. And they were just like, please explain to us what the heck's going on. So I was like, well, this is what Saturn return is. And like, okay. But exactly that. They wanted, come on, Hope's mum, tell us why we all feel like all of a sudden we want to settle down, find the right man, have babies, sort out our lives. It was really funny. Anyway, we digress. That's what it's like this week. It is that kind of changing energies, like what's going on, but it will settle down towards the end of the week. So just bear with it at the beginning of the week. And also the moon isn't going to help things, because we have like Pisces and Aries moons at the beginning of the week. So that's not going to really help ground us. But then we have Taurus moon at the end of the week. So that will help ground us into this new energy. So just kind of like bear with it.
So maybe a little bit of emotional roller coastering for a minute, from feeling a whole lot to being mad that you're feeling a whole lot, to realizing it's okay to feel a whole lot.
Exactly that. So the first thing that moves is Mercury. Mercury's moving into Leo on Tuesday.
Fantastic.
And stay there till August the 12th. Mm-hmm. So this is going to bring us confidence in our thinking and our communication. We might be really convincing and persuasive in communication. So we talked last week about thinking about new ways to communicate. Maybe now it's like, well, now I've established that new way, I'm really confident and I can be really persuasive. This is a good time if you really need to be persuasive about anything to anybody, to talk to those. And Leo is a fire sign. Leo is really big on getting started with things. So although this is the difficulty with this, we're going to be really confident. We're going to be really like, yes, I'm motivated, I'm confident, I'm going out there, I'm going to think this way and I'm going to communicate with you this way. But Leo really doesn't like detail. So like, don't go in like all guns blazing to request like, for example, a promotion or something like that if you haven't looked at the details, because your boss may turn around and say, well, actually, look, and you're just like, oh yeah, I didn't really look at that, did I? Or like, for example, always house sales staff. Now I'm moving on to purchasing house at the minute, and I just emailed saying, you have not sent this to my solicitor, you've sent it to the wrong solicitor. Which is true, but it's like, yeah, but Sarah, you didn't check what they sent you, did you? Because like 2 weeks ago you sent it to the wrong solicitor. But yeah, Sarah, you should have actually checked what they sent you 2 weeks ago, but that was during Mercury retrograde, so you didn't, did you? And now, so that's the kind of thing. Leo Mercury sends you out saying you didn't do this, and then they're going to come back and say, yeah, you shouldn't checked it, shouldn't you? Like, and then you feel small.
You just blew my mind. So astrology is therapy. In like a way, when you like really look at yourself and hold up a mirror, and especially if you're somebody that is ready to hold a mirror to oneself. I have a Leo midheaven, which is so the cusp of my 10th house. And in my 10th house is all of my Virgo stellium, which I always talk about how my stellium is broken. And sometimes I can have like a little bit of an erratic response to things. And I realized recently, because astrology is a lifelong practice, I realized recently that Virgo is not on the cusp of any of my houses. And so when that happens, you kind of can have a disassociation with that energy because it's not like on the forefront of a cusp of a house, which is interesting because I have a stellium in Virgo. But what you just said is that like, I am like that all the time. Like I can't, when we were doing our house things, like I can't be on the phone with anybody because I get so mad when things like are not perfect or somebody dropped the ball, and I act very dramatic.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm like, how dare you? Yep. I am, like, it's not good. It's not a good look for me, but I'm like, how dare you mess up? Like, this is your job to help me. I'm paying you to help me. And what are you doing? And I don't know how many times I said to my husband, I'm like, they're lucky I haven't talked to them because I would just bury them. And our realtor was like, so I'm so glad I'm breaking this news to Chad and not Anna. And I'd be like in the background listening on speakerphone, and I'd be like, what are you about to say? Yeah. Because I am super duper dramatic. And it's probably because of that Leo midheaven.
Yeah.
Over all of that Virgo stellium.
Yeah.
And it makes me a little less grounded and a little bit more dramatic.
Absolutely, yeah, I would say definitely, because like the Virgo Mercury is going to make us exactly that, dramatic. We're going to want to tell stories about ourselves. We're going to want to wax lyrical, and we might not be very perceptive of other people as much as we can be when Mercury is in more intuitive signs. So we need to make sure we listen carefully to other people. But yeah, I was the same. I've got Sagittarius Mercury, so yeah, is that just kind of like rah? Oh yeah. That was my fault. Sorry.
So yeah,
I'm
feeling very seen on this Astro forecast. I'm feeling very, very, yeah.
Yeah, same with me, absolutely. So I'm gonna have to be super careful. Leo, with Mercury and Leo having already having a fire Leo, a fire Mercury, sorry. So I have a fire Mercury. Mercury's in a fire sign. It's going to be very difficult for me to kind of rein it in and not just kind of go out all guns blazing without paying attention to that detail. So really paying attention to detail and listening to people and perceiving people's thoughts and feelings as well is going to be quite important. So and we have Jupiter is moving as well. So Jupiter is going back into Aquarius. Jupiter's in Pisces, has been in Pisces, but Jupiter's in retrograde. So Jupiter's retrograde is taking it back into Aquarius. And we've got that quite a lot at the minute. That's why we have these kind of like the Saturn Uranus square happening 3 times this year, because there's a lot of these like slower moving planets that are moving backwards and forwards this year because their retrogrades are taking them back to where they were, because Jupiter had only just moved into Pisces, and now it's back into Aquarius. So that will happen on Wednesday, and it's going to be staying in Aquarius now pretty much for the rest of the year. It'll be in Aquarius till 29th of December before it moves back to Pisces again, and it stays in retrograde until October 18th. So it's not just having a little visit back into Aquarius, it's more like a little peep into Pisces and then back to where it's been most of the time of late. So I think with that, we'll feel it a little bit, but I think Jupiter's quite happy in Aquarius. It's been in Aquarius for a long while, and it's been part of that whole age of Aquarius that we had, starting with that big grand conjunction around about Yule last year. So Jupiter in Aquarius encourages us to think about our individuality and also our humanitarianism. And I think we're going to be really challenged here to, especially with the things we talked about last week with this Mercury, Pluto, Mercury, Uranus, kind of like, what are we contributing to society? Are we using our gifts, our individuality, like our individual talents, our individual gifts? It's all about using your individuality. Can't say this today. Using our individuality, but for the good of other people, and for the good of humanity. And we are in a place in the world right now. I've been reading quite a lot about this concept of star seeds and that kind of thing of late, which I'm finding fascinating, and it kind of really fits me. I'm like, it's one of those things, like you said last week about how we should think about things in a different way. I read some things about star seeds, and it really was that kind of like, I would have scoffed at this, what a load of nonsense. That fits. Oh, I think I've been incarnated somewhere else in the last few lifetimes. I think this is me, because everything fitted like this kind of, I don't quite fit. And that was really good for me, because I have we said about aha moments in our chart, because I have South node in Leo in house 1, and my North node is in Aquarius, house 7. So now this was a really important thing. So Anna said what to do last week, and it really worked for me. It's just kind of like, I'm beginning to suddenly see what that sort of like contractual relationships Aquarius means. And I just thought I needed to find the right partner. I was thinking too shallowly. I think it's more that kind of soul contract with people, and like doing this kind of work. And so that's exactly what this Jupiter back into Aquarius, and because it's in retrograde, it's really wanting us to like open our mind up to this kind of new stuff, to this new ways of thinking, and this new age of Aquarius. I think it is really quite interesting, like I say, like kind of ET spirituality kind of stuff for me, that I really was like, no, that's pushing it too far. And suddenly it's like, no, this makes a lot of sense. This is my, yes, I'm going to look much more into that. And I think so this really is a good time for this, following on from last week and that challenge that Anna gave you. If you did kind of read something like I did that was really one for our opinion and then the other one, and then kind of felt something new, then this Jupiter retrograde is really holding that spotlight to you to say, right, what can you contribute to humanity then by using that quirky little individual weirdness that you've just discovered about yourself?
That's the thing about Aquarius, is that it learns and then wants to share that knowledge with people. It wants to pinpoint what its specific idea is and then put it out on a platter and say, hey, I want you to taste what I'm serving, and then be a believer that like this is the right mix of ingredients. Like,
that's exactly it. And I had exactly that aha moment, and it made my, like you just said with your chart, and we were talking about Leo just then, it was that kind of, that makes sense now. That North node makes much more sense now than it did. Like, how can my big North node thing be just to find the right man? No, this makes much more sense.
Astrology is therapy. It is. It's like, I mean, it's not, obviously. I'm saying that in like a loose way. You don't want to replace therapy with astrology, but at the same time, it does. It makes you hold such a mirror to yourself sometimes.
It does. But you say that, but don't forget Carl Jung used astrology in therapy. You can use it alongside therapy. He used astrology charts rather than questionnaires with his clients to see what they needed to work on. So it can be used in conjunction for sure. So Mars moves into Virgo as well this week. So Mars, it's interesting. Mars in Virgo is interesting because Mars is quite a workhorse in Virgo. It kind of makes us motivated to get things done and paying attention to those details that our Mercury Leo is going to stop us doing. Mars is going to get in there and like, actually, you really do need to pay attention to these details, kind of, because Mars is kind of that planet of our will, our willful behavior. And in Virgo, it kind of gives us that will to be driven by the satisfaction of getting a job well done and done properly, and dotting the I's and crossing the T's and those kind of things.
This is another look at my stellium. I also have Mars in Virgo. And I think because I do have that Leo midheaven, it makes me sometimes look like I'm procrastinating because I want things to be perfect. And if I can't figure out how to do it right, or like follow the right instructions, or I don't know how to get from A to Z, I like stop altogether, because if I can't do it right, I almost completely shut down because I want it to be perfect.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And we're all going to be a bit like that in this time, and this is going to last until
welcome everybody.
Exactly. Awesome. And it's like Anna's awesome, pays such attention to detail, and it's brilliant. And we're going to be a bit more Anna until September the 15th. So that's quite a long time for Mars. That's quite it's quite a long, because Mars can sometimes be in a planet in a sign for a lot shorter than that. So it's quite a long stay for Mars there in Virgo until September 15th. And then all this week Mars opposes Jupiter. It's one of the luckiest oppositions. We talk a lot about oppositions as, again, that tug of war, and just like can be quite difficult, but this is considered quite a lucky opposition because it brings us confidence and a desire to win. And we can make good use of that wherever we need it. So kind of like, that kind of idea of Mars being that kind of like god of war, but use that. Sometimes we need to be a god or goddess of war in our own life in a certain area, and so use that. Now the interesting thing is that we have transitioning, both of those planets are transitioning into new signs this week, so that is really cool, because this lucky opposition, we get a chance to have that play out in two different areas of our chart. So at the beginning of the week we have that in Mars in Leo and Jupiter in Pisces, and then end of the week we've got Mars in Virgo and Jupiter in Aquarius. So when we say like look at your chart and see where that's playing out for you, you've got two chances to make use of that during this week. So I would say really do have a look at your birth chart, see where those signs are, and then have a look and see where do you need that desire to win in that kind of like opposition in your chart, because that could be really, really useful. You can use it twice. Like I say, you're quite often these big exciting aspects come and it's just, that's where it is, but this is in two places. That's really super exciting. But again, just be a little bit aware of overconfidence, particularly early in the week when we have like Mars in Leo and Jupiter in Pisces. We might be a little bit overconfident, but because then Jupiter moves in Aquarius, that's going to bring that more of that responsibility for others, so it won't be quite such, we shouldn't be quite so overconfident the second half of the week. But I think this is really interesting. It's a really cool aspect to have across those two different places.
Awesome. So yeah, go check that out in your birth charts. Find out where that is going to bring you some lucky oppositions.
Absolutely, it's cool. So the moon, I said, transits through Pisces, Aries and Taurus this week. Pisces and Aries is not going to help us feel grounded with all these changes, but Taurus will help us. And it's sextile Jupiter as it moves into Taurus on Friday. The moon is sextile Jupiter, which means the energy between the moon and Jupiter is flowing really well. So that's a good day to consider. Like we talk about Jupiter being abundance and luck through opportunities, and Taurus is really good at taking little steps, baby steps every day. And sometimes we just expect that we've got this big goal and it's just going to happen like that, but it doesn't. It takes hard work. So I think it's a good time to think on Friday, like, what little steps, baby steps am I doing? Am I making sure that whatever, particularly what my lunar intention is for this lunar cycle, am I making sure that I'm doing something, no matter how small, every day towards that intention being realized? Because that's obviously the best way to realize our intentions.
Yes. And this would be a good segue to check out the sistersenchanted.com/blog, because I think like a week ago or 2 weeks ago at this point, we had a blog and podcast all about intentions and why they sometimes fail. And this could be a good time to check in with that so that you can find out how to take your teeny tiny steps.
Absolutely. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So yeah, lots of changing energies this week, and just needing that little time just to sort of settle with it, but knowing that you've got that Taurus moon at the end of the week that's going to help ground. So perhaps you might want to plan something for the weekend, something kind of grounding. So if you are feeling a little bit, whoa, everything's a bit unsettled, plan a nice grounding, like going for a walk outside, sitting near water, like some sort of grounding activity for the weekend that you can be looking forward to.
I like it. Sounds good. So this week, changes, and you might feel them as a little bit of a confusion of just self, because the planets are settling into something a little bit new energetically. So changes this week, and lucky oppositions, and Mars and Virgo. Woo! So
Yay.
some good things to look forward to.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Yeah. All right, Sarah. Well, thank you so much.
You.
Thank you. So thank you all for joining us on another Astro Forecast as a part of the Magic on the Inside podcast. And we hope that you have an enchanted rest of your week ahead.
Yes.